So in short order, the NIST, as we all know in government terms, is the standards body for the government. It's been, since 2014, leading the Smart Cities, if you will, initiative or agenda, which is kind of like I like to say sometimes hidden in plain view. Not many people know that there's a thing. Every 2 years they celebrate it at the expo that they have at the convention center. And if you're a Smart Cities fan, there's a real program, and it's a true public-private partnership, which is why, yes, I enjoy, in this case, working for free to help drive the agenda with my colleagues, Catherine Castro, whose mug you'll see up here, and Ian Magazine from Pittsburgh, who drove down, is going home tonight, and is an amazing individual as well. Yeah, go Stillers. They're everywhere. You Steeler fans are everywhere.
As long as you can get into the whole Penguins Caps thing, I think
it's a great city. So net NIST, there's a program. Please read up on it. We're on social media, and you'll see some of the story. And I think for those in the room who are technology providers, those who do sales, those who do business development, those who are federal employees, we talk about mission of government. This is about the mission where government and industry and citizens, residents come together and really focus on how are the cities of our future going to be powered. So I'm not going to read through these bullets, but a collaborative platform, the Global City Teams Challenge. The word challenge isn't a challenge.gov for money. It's a challenge that we face every day as public servants at the federal, state, and local level to work with industry to kind of do the buy, sell, but just to get in a room and talk about how do we move the pendulum, the needle to the right, whatever you want to call it. I worked 25 years in government. Dave Harity and I and everybody in this room I have some semblance of a relationship with. It's really easy to say, I support the mission. It's another thing to get in a room, roll up your sleeves, and say, what are we going to try to get done, and what's the outcome? I like to not joke, but the government, the ultimate nonprofit in my eyes, it is the largest purchaser of IT in the world. A lot of people think the government is kind of all about inertia, when really the government is a big driver in that ecosystem of innovation. Industry, of course, the national labs, academia. So this community, the superclusters, and there's others, are really about bringing the communities together, and that's the challenge we face in our country, but also internationally. Multi-city, multi-stakeholder. The utility supercluster that this is tonight about is that convergence of energy and water. You hear about the energy-water nexus that exists. Jim McCarthy's in the house, National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And I am trying to rush, and I'm not going to get done in 5 minutes, maybe like 8, because my colleague Joanne Isham, who's awesome and in the back of the room, is somebody who is just as passionate about this as I am. But while it sounds as though we're just going to focus on energy, water, and waste management, this is about the sectors, the critical sectors in our country that we depend on. And technology is never going to be the problem. It'll catalyze innovation. So we're going to try to convene with this recharge reboot of this supercluster. There's no ask other than be involved. We're not at this point issuing grants. We're not saying if you want to pay, you can play. We really are looking for you all to help us socialize what's happening in your respective worlds, what you know about, and then funnel it through what NIST is socializing, not just every 2 years, but throughout the years with the strategies, and really if it's just use cases. What's happening in another country, another city, is relevant to where the government would like to go, or to simply share and learn how technology is enabling a lot of these sectors. So let me see if I hit this one right. Yes. So we are the utility supercluster. There is one for transportation, one for buildings, one for, I think, wireless data. So again, it's something that when you see it and you're going to go, oh my God, I didn't know this exists. If I'm a Fed, you could probably apply your mission to some of these sectors. If you're selling, this is what we're trying to get done. We're focusing on resilience in the water sector, in the energy sector, in the waste sector. How do we enhance security? And that's, when you get into the cyber, physical systems, data protection, wireless communications, a lot of this IoT discussion and data flying through the airways, we have to protect that data. We know we do, but who's focusing on that? We have use cases in this utility supercluster that we're going to be showcasing that. There are about 50 projects in the supercluster under utility that are fairly active. So again, it's all in public domain. There are about 300 across the entire Smart Cities, Global Cities Teams Challenge. So there's really cool use cases that aren't even in our own country based that are looking at security and sustainability and this interdependence. I can tell you in the energy space, those of you working in that sector, there's this convergence happening of operational technology and information technology. The grid is the oldest and most antiquated network in the world, and it's complex. Mara Torres, my colleague at Anterix, is looking at broadband and wireless communications, doing stuff with our national labs to try to say, how can we create a grid that's more resilient, not just reliable? Not just that it works, but what happens if something bad happens from a cyber or physical system perspective. So interdependence across energy, water, and waste management, just like in the autonomous vehicle transportation community, cars are networks on four wheels. How is that data transmitting to a traffic light or a sensor during certain times of the day, or a garbage truck that needs to get to an area in Pittsburgh, right, Ian, where it's lots of potholes, but how can divert, the attention or the car to a road that's going to be more efficient? So when you hear IoT and IIoT, the industrial Internet of Things, the Internet of Things, the billions of devices that are connected, it doesn't just work. It's supposed to just work. We expect it to work as residents, as citizens in our communities. But tech companies, the Googles, the IBMs, I'm not trying to be biased, the Red Hats, every other tech company that sells to the government, Microsoft, Amazon, I'm always worried about like showing bias, but I guess I can do that now. I'm out of government. The cloud is a player in this space. It's not just about as a service, it's where's the data going to reside so that we can make decisions, or the cars can make decisions better, faster, and more efficiently. And then, yes, we will look at funding opportunities and socialize a lot of that. There's $150 billion a year in the research and development community that is there for the taking. It's not just going to national labs. It's not just going to universities. It's going to folks in Lee's backyard at the SBA in form of small business grants that if teamed with larger companies, you can chase some of these multi-million-dollar opportunities. So I'm a huge fan of the grant process, and we're going to help socialize some of that in some of our coming agenda. Who we are, okay, enough about me. 29 years in government. I founded a company called Dotson Bridges because I was crazy and left government as a senior executive with no job plans, 4 kids, and a wife that wasn't working at the time. And Betsy, if you ever see this, I love you to death. She's the greatest woman in the world. And she's from Pittsburgh too. But she was my rock. She is my rock. She said, I trust that you're going to be successful and you're going to leverage what you learned in government somehow and monetize your brain cells. And I'm having a wonderful ride, and everybody in here in some way, shape, or forms helped enable that for me, or you've been just incredibly, and I'm grateful, you've been incredible support. Catherine, I won't embarrass, but Catherine Castro is a friend and colleague who is, one of the leaders on the team, Ian Magazine, whose face you'll see in a minute, and they really didn't want to come up and talk about themselves. Bernetta Reese is in the house from Justice. She's awesome. I'm embarrassing her. I love your shoes, by the way. Shoes. Can't tell if they're orange or red, but I'm loving them. Catherine has brought in this short order to me, and again, another work for free, how to communicate. She's got an international focus and optic that is already bringing to the table what's happening in other countries and how do we get the message out. I think tonight is an example of all we can do is say, hey, we're going to get together and have a meetup and talk about it. We're going to use social media. But the word to get out on smart cities is that it's happening. And I think in our own federal government, which preaches mission and preaches services to citizens, a digital world that's a digital divided world, we have to communicate. And she's like top shelf. And I'm so psyched that we've reconnected after all these years, because we used to work together and she was at Cisco and now she's just this amazing entrepreneur. So you can read about her. This guy over here, Ian Magazine, there is no better Sherpa in the city of Pittsburgh, which is arguably the coolest tech hub out there in the country today. No disrespect to Silicon Valley or Austin, but Pittsburgh's an incredible place with academia. I've known Ian post-government, and really he's so connected in the smart cities community up there. It was a no-brainer to ask him to come help us from an academic standpoint. He's a serial entrepreneur type guy who is attractive to those companies who want to get somewhere and have it articulated in a manner, and his ties in that city are going to be helpful as we do a lot of work with that zip code because of the work that they're doing in Pittsburgh around things like AI and robotics, with leveraging Carnegie Mellon and the Heinz Institute. Coley Franson's not here. He's my boy from Louisiana. He's a water guy who is growing food and creating clean water in parts of the world and his passion. He's an attorney. If he were here, you'd love to hear his story as well. He's the other member of the leadership team, and you'll hear and see more about him. And here's how to engage with us, the takeaway, and I'm stopping. You'll hear terms when you go on the website. SuperCluster, just think of this is it, you're part of it. An action cluster is a project. It's a term that's used if you want to apply to actually have a project in the, cylinder of the utility supercluster. You can fill out a worksheet and you team, there's criteria, but you can actually have one of those, what we're calling our 40 living, breathing projects that get celebrated at the expo and throughout the year. But it has some requirements, which are a city or a county or a municipality with another company and a person. It gets vetted by NIST, and once it becomes an action cluster, we're going to build that into our roadmap, which we'll talk about here in a second, or right now. But the expo is what happens every 2 years. We just had it this year in July, and that's where for 3 days at the Washington Convention Center, it's like, again, a packed house that's not a cloud event, that's not an AI event, but real people with booths and cities and things that you go, this is innovation, this is invention, why aren't we talking more about it? The roadmap is something that is going to become real. We are going to fill it, which is why we hope tonight you want to help fill that document, that artifact with us, because it's going to be an aggregation of really all of the cool stuff happening internationally around the energy, water, waste nexus. And then we have our own LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels. Catherine's been amazing. We appreciate if you go out and you read it, not just like it, but if you have something that you're doing in this space that you'd like us to share through those channels, we're going to do that as well. How did I do? CC. Is everything cool? Okay. I'm going to turn it over really quickly to Jennifer Morrissey, who is, yes, my neighbor, friend, soccer mom, and incredible attorney, but also like this theatrical person and super smart, like brain cells that are always firing. She leads a smart cities practice with Emma Hand here, so I'm going to let her come up. I'm going to set up her PowerPoint, and just so you know why we're teaming with them and their think tank, and there are going to be ways for you to get involved with this, with the think tank as well, if it interests you, and I think it will because it's awfully compelling. Okay, Jennifer. All right, and remember, just click on that one.
Yes. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'm the one when we have our think tank meetings in here who's running around with the microphone telling people that we can't hear them. So I am Jennifer Morrissey. I am the co-editor-in-chief of the Dentons Smart Cities and Communities think tank. I'm also an attorney in the energy practice here. I have to start off with the Dentons elevator speech. We are the largest law firm in the world. We have over 10,000, I think now over 12,000 lawyers worldwide, maybe. And we're in over 79 countries, over 177 locations. We are everywhere. And one of the things that we're trying to accomplish with that global footprint is to take advantage of all of the learning that we can do from all of these different regions to bring people together to examine best practices that are going on as we look at this tremendous expansion of urbanization that is happening around the world, and at the same time the sort of acceleration of the pace of technological developments. So we, a couple of years ago, created a think tank. I think we're the only law firm-based think tank on this topic, but you don't have to be a lawyer to be part of it. In fact, I would say looking over our list of over 300 active members that we have right now, very few of them are lawyers, so don't let that deter you. There's no cost to join it. So we started off with taking a look at what is a smart city? And as we talked to people, we realized that very often when we were having conversations, we were talking past one another because there was no sort of universal or coherent definition of what a smart city is. If you're talking to somebody in the tech industry, they've got one image of it. If you're talking to a mayor in a city in Louisiana somewhere, they've got a very different image of what it is. So we tried to come up with a definition that we use as our working definition for that sort of informs our conversations. And here it is. We start with the idea of infrastructure modernization because without the electrical and telecommunications infrastructure, the layering of all of the other technologies is very challenging. So this is the definition we've come up with. It's a working definition. It's constantly evolving, and we welcome input on it, but we say a smart city modernizes digital, physical, and social infrastructure and integrates all essential services for the benefit of its citizens by harnessing advances in sustainable technology to make delivery of these services more efficient, innovative, secure, connected, and equitable. There are a couple of words up here that we really want to highlight that are different, that we've found are different from most conversations that we've been party to. One is the combination of not only digital and physical infrastructure, but social infrastructure. If you don't have the buy-in from the people in the cities that you are trying to make smarter in whatever fashion, you're going to be faced with a lot of challenges. The other is the notion of equity, and actually a couple of our Smart Cities clients asked us specifically to focus on that. We see a lot of pilot projects that go in, and there's nothing wrong with pilot projects. You got to get those you get the technology proven somehow, but very often they go into areas, neighborhoods, communities that may not be the ones who need it the most. And so one of the things that we're trying to focus on is not only how to get this infrastructure up, how to layer these technologies on, but to make sure that they are reaching all of the communities who need them most and who will be able to benefit from them. So, think tank chaired by Clint Vance, who is the head of our global energy practice, and Emma Hand, who is his co-chair. I lead the editorial board. We also have in the room tonight Pete Tseronis and Robin Cantor, who are leaders of some of the pillars of our think tank. The think tank right now has over 300 members, legal, business, policy, thought leaders, internal and external to Dentons, actually mostly external. We come together regularly for exchanges of information on innovations, challenges, best practices related to smart cities, issues of sustainability and equitable transformation. We really want to be a vehicle for exploring the difficult questions, the hard issues, and for sharing best practices as they develop. In addition to getting together occasionally, and we have a summit that takes place over a couple of days during the summer, and then we meet about once a month for roundtable discussions. We also we publish thought pieces and share them with members. I'm going to do a little public service announcement here. We have free on the tables on either side our last couple of volumes, just to give you an example. We welcome contributions from folks. These are not learned treatises. These are not law review articles, but they are, we call them thought leadership pieces, typically about 2 to 4 pages on an issue that is interesting to you, a development that you might want to share with others who are like-minded. So we invite you to reach out and join us and contribute if you are so inclined. Moving on, I'm going to skip a couple of these. The think tank is divided into 14 pillars. Why 14? Well, because some of us were advocating 10 as a nice round number. Others couldn't fit all of the categories that we wanted into those 10 pillars. We've landed on 14. To some extent, they're a little bit arbitrary because everything is overlapping and integrated. And this slide is a little difficult to read, but there are pictures of these in all of our publications, so you can take a look at what the different pillars are. If you're interested in a particular area, we'd be happy to connect you with the folks who are working in that area. Here we just have a couple of photos from some of our think tank events. You see Pete Tseronis up there. He's a regular attendee at these events. Next year we hope to see some of your faces in here. All right, so 300 members, lawyer, policy professionals, our editorial board, I talked about that. The next couple of things we have coming up, On November 18th, we have a roundtable on financing, funding, and affordability issues. People have been asking us for actually over a year to do a roundtable discussion on funding and financing. Surprisingly, it was challenging to bring together the right group of panelists for that issue. Everybody wants to talk about the technology. What's the cool new gadget? Everybody wants to talk about 5G. Everybody wants to talk about grid modernization. And then you mention, how are we going to pay for it? And the room gets very, very quiet. So we're going to take it on this time. We're looking forward to a discussion that hopefully will not be very, very quiet. And I'm sure this will be the first of many sessions where we're talking about this. We also, on January 29th, we have a session on sustainable efficiency, and we are still planning the next 6 or 7 that will take place over the course of the next several months. So welcome ideas also. And then our third annual summit will take place in mid-July, because everybody loves to be in Washington, D.C. in the middle of summer. But those of you who've been to our events before, I think can attest. Robin can attest. Robin came out of our first summit, and I've never.
My birthday.
It was her birthday, and
Best birthday present ever.
there you have it. There you have it. So we hope to see you all. Welcome everybody tonight. Thank you so much for turning out, and reach out to me or Kathleen or Pete or Robin if you have an interest in learning more about what we're doing and in participating.
Yes, awesome. And I forgot to mention that yes, absolutely. Just for a second. The events and the roundtables and the lunches that are here, it's a pretty nice location right near the metro. I've helped put together some panels. Morgan O'Brien's been on some, Kristen Honey from government. You know, there's the circuit we all know in government that's very tech-oriented. Dentons, which represents a law firm, but this huge global practice, is touching every one of those 16 critical infrastructure sectors. And the reach that this firm, that this entity has, it's not about pitching. They're not selling anything. It's allow us to help you. So what you're working on in your domain, I'm thinking Dave here, GSA has a mission around public buildings. There's a public buildings innovation supercluster that somehow ties back to how can we have more efficient, buildings and that's just about, green energy. It's just what are folks doing to modernize the public building itself.
I'm going to make a note of that one, because that is, buildings are on the
PBS,
short
GSA,
list,
who
right?
would have known? There's a whole part of GSA that's not the CIO shop. No disrespect, but there is more to GSA, right, than Federal Acquisition Service and OCIO. I'm here to help Jennifer and the think tank promote awesomeness, and that's people and change agents and thought leaders.
Kathleen, that goes in good news.
So each of you has a platform. It's just a matter if you want to do it, and I'm going to hound you at times, because why not? As far as the utility supercluster goes, this is the first redo. Tim Smith's in the house. He came in late. He's a great guy to know. Ty Roach, by the way, is the best man at my wedding. He's a great guy to know. We're going to do one of these a quarter, and what we plan to do going forward is now start to celebrate at what we call our meetup or get together. There'll probably be food and drink, of course, but it's going to be bringing people up here to talk about some of these awesome action cluster activities so that you folks can take it back or engage and then understand how what they're doing is serving a mission probably that the federal government would love to socialize. So that's sort of the ask. So get involved. There's no fee, and we're going to promote and hope that you stay connected with us. So good.